Jamie here. Hope everyone's doing outstanding. Monday, April 21st, 3:23. This fine afternoon. Talk really quick about the markets. Some names I'm looking at go from there. S&P down nearly 3% here. Spies right at 510.80. Just a a melting, disgusting session since the open. Stocks as a SPY was at 522 at the open, and then it's just been nonstop selling. It's like a boxing match, and the first three rounds was right after the tariffs, and there were knockdowns and excitement, and then a couple weeks later, now it's like the boxing matches in the 11th and 12th round, and it's just like one of the fighters has given up. It's just not much in the way of buyers, and it was like a slow. I wouldn't even call it a slow, just not much in the way of bounces until finally 2 o'clock hit 508 and change, 508.50. I thought 509, got under 509 for a second, bounced back down under 509 for a second. Then we're back over here at 510. Who knows how how things play out this week? I was saying, absent a major announcement from a trade deal or some kind of catalyst, it's like uh, the pump was used after he announced the just roll back a 90-day pause on the tariffs and just 10% across the board. And after that, it's like, what other rabbit can they pull out of a hat to rally the markets? That's kind of where we're at right now. So it's kind of scary. So, I mean, unless the market's priced that in already, then maybe, but it does not feel. I mean, I don't know if earnings can save. We have Google, we have Tesla this week, PMI data on Wednesday. You hope there's something that rescues the market. Otherwise, it's just going to be more melts, and then you worry about blowups. You worry about whether it be the treasuries, the U.S. dollar cause some issues, deleveraging, uh, just all these different things that could play out. Just they're not good outcomes, right? So, needless to say, you know I was looking at some put hedges, and I would always be hedging. It's just when I start looking at some of these names, uh, it it's tough to find decent risk reward setups on the put side. And then I was looking at, as I continue to use SQQ as a put hedge, but the premiums, I was staring at the 50s all morning and they weren't moving. Um, so I waited to the afternoon. Finally, it looked like they were gaining some premium. So I'll continue to use that one, but it's tough to to trade some of these, and sometimes the better trades are trying to play off the morning lows for gaps, but just tough. And even like some of the magnificent seven names. Like if you wanted to do Amazon, Amazon's down nearly 4% today. You're making 100% on puts. Let's say the put 157.50s are who knows where they were at the start of the day, right? Amazon's down $7, so it was 172. You would have to go all the way down to 157.50, get those for 50 cents, and then wait for it to tumble with the rest of the market, and then you're making 100% on it. I mean, if you had the foresight, I guess, to think that Amazon would be off 4%, and even that to pay that risk to just for the 100% reward, I mean, don't get me wrong, 100% is great in any environment, but like for that risk, it just you have to hope that there's going to be a 4% downward move on Amazon today, right? And I guess if you hold it, there's continuation, that makes sense, but just that's the risk where it doesn't jive for me. And on a Friday when it's heck of a lot less expensive, you get a 4% move. Those are 1,000, 1,500%. So anyway, that's why you see me be a little patient here today. Doesn't make sense to be overly aggressive if the risk reward doesn't jive. I'm not going to sit there just to throw money at a trade just to do it. So anyway, so that's kind of the market here. What's going to happen. So you have POTUS is still kind of standing firm in his rhetoric around Powell. So it just doesn't make sense to me. Same with the risk reward on the options for him to continue to go after Powell. His term is up soon. Just let it run its course. You don't need to add any more uncertainty to the market. He put out a tweet or comments on his Truth Social this morning saying the economy is going to slow down if he doesn't lower rates, right? And then I made like a little remark. You mean tariffs, right? The wrong thing, and it's getting like hundreds of likes on FinTwit, but it just you know anyway. So that's kind of we'll see how that all plays out. But just hope there's some kind of catalyst, some news, some event that changes the momentum or trajectory of what's going on. Otherwise, just like today, it just feels like there's like okay, it's everybody's like okay, we're going down. Well, they've all kind of given into that premise. Hopefully some rescues us. Anyway, so now 509. Hopefully we can close over 509. That'll give some optimism into tomorrow. Uh, and then maybe we get some tradable ranges here, but that's what we'll be watching. And then also just taking a look, I always say silver lining the VIX. You look at the candle today, and it's off its highs here, despite the market being somewhat near the lows. So I, I kind of hold that with a grain of salt. The the VIX is kind of holding up there. And then on the flip side, the amount of stocks I was just talking about this morning started to trend in the right directions. Amount of stocks trading over their 50-day, 200-day moving average on the S&P, and that's back in the wrong direction. 20% of the names, 20% lower than it was to start today. So we'll see how things play out. I keep, I always say don't have my bull or bear suit on. I prefer to play bounces, and I would prefer for a lot of this to get resolved so we can start looking for momentum and growth names as opposed to seeing how far these names can fall. Right? I don't like playing that game. But until those things change, it doesn't make sense for me to try and go far out of money playing some crazy calls on growth names, thinking that things are going to return to where they were before it. So hopefully that changes. All right, so now individual names, and Reddit I was watching last week it's had plenty of upgrades and reiterations of bullish targets, and it's a name that I was talking about it since its IPO. I kind of missed it. It was in the 70s. I thought, oh, the IPO man is gonna wane, and then they start reporting earnings. You realize that the story with Reddit is much bigger than what it looks like on the front cover, right? So they have data, AI, all that fun stuff, and user growth and all those different levers. So here it is. It's bounced off of $90. Uh, a couple times it hit it last week, and premiums look pretty inexpensive on a risk reward basis. And I think some of that has to do with Google reporting earnings Thursday after the close. So I think because of that, premiums will remain elevated, and then if it bounces, those will you'll get some premium build. So in lieu of trying to look time somebody's bounce or whatever, I went and got the Reddit strikes. I'll continue to look at that one for opportunity, because I think if it gets an upgrade or another bullish commentary this week, or if the market does find some footing, I can see it trading into the hundreds very quickly and beyond. So that was kind of a thought process there. And the funny thing is, when markets were hitting lows, all of a sudden a magical hand came in and it went from 90.78 to 92 in a flash. So it's showing relative strength. I really like this one this week if the market bounces and finds footing. GPCR, so the GLP-1 names getting a bid. I think some of it has to do with the new FDA person. Some I guess not so negative commentary over the weekend around to studies. Some of these companies have some studies that some folks thought the FDA was going to nix, where it looks like maybe it'll be the reverse. So I don't know if that's helped play out with some of these GLP-1 names, but you see some names like obviously GPCR, Altimmune, Turn Pharmaceuticals. I'll talk about that one in a second. So my calls rose solidly in the green early in the morning, reversed down into the 2250s, back here at $23. The spreads are wide. I put it in the chat room earlier today that I was possibly looking for like some June strikes or July strikes, and the spreads are kind of wide on them. But I start looking, I'm like, if this gets acquired, if GPCR gets acquired, it's probably gonna be for like $60 or $80. And the July 45 strikes are 0 by 75. So, which makes it tough. Like if you need the cash, you get in and you want to get out, you can probably have to be very patient and hope someone fills you, or you're going to get killed on the trade. So I want to wait for the bid ask to firm up, but I might look for some other strikes. My 25s also have wide bid ask spreads, but still like that one. So I'll continue to hold those calls. The other one is Turn Pharmaceuticals, and Turn, I think it's $354 million in cash on hand right now. Let's see if I can get the exact number. And this is a name I traded down here and then much higher. $234 million company with $335 million or so in cash on hand. So it trades less than cash, and it has oral GLP-1 studies and another study. So they have 3 different studies ongoing right now, but early stage. So here's another name. Could be one of those little under the radar pocket acquisitions by one of these mega cap companies. So I was looking at some strikes. The May $3 are like 20 cents, but no bid. And people ask, why would you trade options on a dollar stock, penny stock? Technically it's under $5, so it's a penny stock because of the leverage, right? So let's say you want to put 1,000, and I don't my positions on options are small because it's leverage, right? That's why I trade the options. Let's say you took a $400, you bought 20 contracts at 20 cents on the $3 strikes, and it goes it goes to $4, you make 2 grand, whereas opposed you take that same amount of capital and buy the shares, you're not making as much, right? Although your risk is more defined, less risky a trade, but that's hence the premise of doing the strikes. So I'm not saying I'm adding turn here. It was $2 to start April. It was a big swing down from 350, but similar to GPCR, I think you have the backdrop of this Pfizer dropping out of the study last week, and I think is just going to expedite M&A. But again, I've been saying M&A in the GLP-1 space for a while, so please take it with a grain of salt. Other names, well, GameStop's actually starting to get a bid here. Hopefully, it closes in the green. Premiums have just been destroyed on GME. You would think so. Bitcoin is doing phenomenal today, and finally doing what it was, I guess intended when it to be kind of a store of value and something that can be not tied to economies or any of that, just be a currency, right? So I would have thought today would be the day that GME could really also show that it's finally going to be something outside of just being a archaic, brand that's eventually their business. Who knows if it's going to go away, but today would be the day, and today it found weakness, especially as the market was tumbling. So I agree. I forget who mentioned in the chat room that once they announce the actual purchase and how they do it, and hopefully they do it in a favorable fashion of Bitcoin, it's probably going to rocket. So as mentioned, those $100 June strikes over the weekend yesterday, those are actually almost. I mean, they're still 35 by 46. The $100 strikes, the June strikes expire in 60 days. $74 out of money, pretty remarkable. But still holding my May 35s. They were somewhat green, then they were flat today, and I almost looked to close the rest out, and now they're in the red. But once I do, I'll get some June strikes. I figure out no sense to get to June or July, so I lock those out. So I'll be patient there. That's GameStop. I'm not going to go on a rant too much on that. And then some other names, Netflix, which you take a look at the premiums. I was mentioning at the open this morning to trade the calls or puts on earnings, both sides pretty much got destroyed. So and then you want to try and time the bounces and what the premiums are tough. I was looking at the 1100s earlier today. Those have come down, but those might be interesting if the market bounces, because considering where it's bound, or at least it's held, you have to think there was the opportunity for folks who said, "Oh, let's sell the news," and it's been bought up, especially on the day that the S&P is down 3%. So that's Netflix. Might be a spec trade I trade later in the week as the premiums come down. And then some other names, I keep saying about trying to do some out of the money names, further dated out, like the First Solars, which I think at some point is going to trade substantially higher, but it's tough in this environment. I mean, I'm trying to think of some good comparisons, but I don't know if it was like the debt crisis back in 2011, back when Priceline used to be, instead of it being the ticker BKNG, it was ticker PCLN. And they haven't done a split, but the stock was one of the few that were in the hundreds. If you don't know, I think I've done these rants before or whatever, but back in the day in 2008, there was I remember looking for stocks to trade because options back in the day only expired on the third Friday of the month, and there weren't many stocks that were over $100. CME Group was one of my favorites back in the day because CME, it actually had split, but it used to be the only one of the few stocks that was over $100. It used to be a $700 stock in the financial crisis, went all the way down to $100. I can give old war stories on that one, but when I looked at those names back in 2008, 2009, you'd watch some of these names and you're like, there's no way this. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, I used to trade when it was like $40, and you'd watch them, and I'm like, there's no way it goes to $30, and it'd be $30 a couple weeks. And you're like, there's no way it's going to $20. It'd be $20, and those went all the way down to $2 or whatever. I'm not saying we're in the same situation here, but that's in the back of my head with some of these names like First Solar. I'm like, this should be trading substantially higher. Another analyst reiteration this morning on First Solar. So it's like, how is this not trading higher? And it's like, maybe it's the market saying maybe we got more room to the downside. So I'm gonna be patient here. If it holds 120, I mean, it tested 120.43 earlier. Do I have it up on here? I'll be looking for some strikes on First Solar. Same with Restoration Hardware. I mean, only a matter of time before the CEO is going to come out with some crazy announcement. It's just, the probabilities increase, right? Similar to with the market falling, the continuation to hit lows. I think the same thing holds true for Restoration Hardware. The lower it goes, the odds that the CEO is going to do something drastic, whether it be some offering to do buybacks or something crazy, special dividend. I don't know. Anyway, that's the rant for today. I'll be back on audio later. 22 minutes left to the close. SPY's at 511.61. Hopefully a decent bounce up to the end of the day and maybe something to build on into tomorrow. Let's have a great day. Rock and roll.